All right, it is 6 o'clock. We will get started. Tonight's meeting is being conducted virtually with the Zoom platform. Please be sure to have your video camera on and be mindful that we are streaming this meeting on Channel 8 and on our city's website. The chat function has been disabled to ensure that the public can see all portions of the meeting. The secretary is the host of the meeting, and I and our IT director will be the co-host. To prevent any disruption, council members and panelists will be able to unmute themselves when recognized. Please mute yourself when you have finished speaking to prevent disruptions. Any votes taken will require roll call votes. The secretary will call your name for you to give your vote. No commentary will be allowed outside an A or nay vote. This time we'll call the Urban Renewal Authority special meeting to order. Ask the secretary to call the roll.
Chair Huseman.
Present.
Vice Chair Frank.
Present.
Commissioner Madera.
Present.
Commissioner Alan Thomas. Commissioner Noble. Commissioner Guardiola. Commissioner Hurst.
Present.
Commissioner Grimes.
Present.
Commissioner Smith.
Present.
Commissioner Fairfield. Commissioner Tedesco. Commissioner Lewis.
Present.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. This time I'm looking for a motion to excuse those members not present. Vice Chair.
A motion to excuse those members not present.
Thank you. Board Member Grimes.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion and a second to excuse those members not present. Is there any discussion? Seeing no request for discussion, we'll take a roll call vote.
Commissioner Madera.
Yes.
Commissioner Alan Thomas.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Noble.
I'm sorry I was late to the meeting. I'll have to abstain because I don't know what the vote is about.
Okay. Commissioner Guardiola.
Yes.
Commissioner Hurst.
Yes.
Commissioner Grimes.
Yes.
Commissioner Smith.
Yes.
Commissioner Fairfield. I don't see them in here. Commissioner Tedesco. Commissioner Lewis.
Yes.
Vice Chair Frank.
Yes.
Chair Huseman.
Yes.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in the affirmative, 1 abstention, and 2 excused.
Thank
Motion
you.
carries.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is approval of minutes. Looking for a motion and a second to approve the minutes of May 8th, 2020, May 28th, 2020, excuse me. Vice Chair.
Motion to approve the minutes of May 28th, 2020.
Board Member Grimes.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of May 28th, 2020. Is there any requests for discussion? Seeing no request for discussion, we'll take a roll call vote.
Commissioner Madera.
Yes.
Commissioner Alan Thomas.
Yeah. Yes.
Commissioner Noble.
Yes.
Commissioner Guardiola.
Yes.
Commissioner Hurst.
Yes.
Commissioner Grimes.
Yes.
Commissioner Smith.
Yes.
Commissioner Lewis.
Yes.
Commissioner or Vice Chair Frank.
Yes.
Chair Huseman.
Yes.
10 in the affirmative, 2 excused. Motion carries.
Thank you, sir. Next on the agenda are presentations. Would like to ask Caitlin Quander, Special Counsel to the Commerce City Urban Renewal Authority, to provide the update.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, good evening. Caitlin Quander, Special Counsel to the Authority. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that you can see the presentation we have prepared this evening. So good evening. Again, Caitlin Quander, Special Counsel to the Authority. One moment. There we go. So this evening, the purpose is really to provide this board with an update on the status of the closing of the sale of the Mile High Greyhound Park property, and to obtain the board's general feedback on the upcoming modifications that we're anticipating on the master development agreement, the purchase and sale agreement, and related agreements. As some background, we had initially scheduled this meeting to request the approval of the amendments that we're going to preview for you this evening, and to obtain approval on some terms on related agreements. Because the parties are still negotiating the proposed amendments and the loan document, we felt that the time this evening would be best used to preview those items for you, answer any questions you may have, and provide a general update so that when we do hopefully meet again next Monday night on the 10th, we will have you have kind of more of a grounding and a better basis for what we walk you through that evening, because it is going to be a number of items. Just as a general update and some background, we continue to negotiate on some final terms, but we do feel like the negotiations are going well and progressing. We do believe that Del West is likely still on track to close by the September 1st, 2020 deadline that I think you're all aware of based on the most recent amendment that was approved. In fact, I would share that Del West is desiring to push for an earlier closing if we can make that happen, if we can finalize the terms and have the board approve those items, that we would ideally close even earlier than September 1st. I know that the environmental question has come up. As you are aware, a VCUP has been processed, and there is going to be, the resolution of that is that there is an environmental covenant which will limit the use and prohibit the use of groundwater essentially going forward. Now, Del West and its project never anticipated using groundwater, but the resolution that comes out of the VCUP is the recording of that covenant as a kind of more full disclosure for anyone who acquires that property on groundwater. Similarly, good update on the master subdivision plat that has progressed along with the public improvement agreement, and we anticipate recording that this week. So on the amendments, the master development agreement, we generally support the following significant items that are changes. The first is that we are looking to modify the master development agreement. As you may recall, there is a right to repurchase. Essentially, if the redeveloper does not execute, most particularly on the horizontal improvements, the installation of roads, utilities, etc., within the timeline that is attached to the master development agreement, the Urban Renewal Authority has the right to repurchase that property and take the property back to find essentially a different developer that would execute on that horizontal and then vertical development. That continues to be the path forward on the right to repurchase, except for as to the tract D2 parcel, which is the parcel that is planned for the affordable housing development. Based on a variety of comments received now that that project has progressed, there are various affordable housing lenders and other equity lenders on that project, and they have raised substantial concerns about the ability to have their financing be included if that right to repurchase remains. On the staff side, we feel comfortable supporting that change because we are confident that track D2 is going to be the first to progress. The lenders are lining up. The building specs have been submitted, and I know they're being processed with planning. They're very anxious to pull a building permit. So we do feel confident that on that one, the horizontal and vertical will occur. In exchange for that, additionally, Del West has agreed to put up an additional $200,000 into the escrow account. Additional changes in the MDA, and I understand that Jenna provided a document to you in advance of this meeting that was prepared by Del West. It is to kind of outline the concepts around some different entities that Del West would like to acquire the property under. So essentially under the MDA, it would allow for direct conveyances from the authority to multiple affiliated entities of Del West and assignments of various responsibilities under the master development agreement accordingly. This is pretty typical in a large commercial transaction for tax purposes, frankly. Del West has asked to acquire, we would do one closing but there would be multiple deeds for different tracks. You know, if the track D2 affordable housing property would go to one particular entity, a different track D3, which is the other affordable product, would go to a different entity. The lots anticipated for single family development would go to another. Again, those are still controlled by Del West, but they have requested to take them in kind of multiple deeds to allow for tax purposes. And happy to walk through in any detail questions on that corporate chart that was provided. The last change on the MDA that we want to flag for you is an extension of the deadline to complete the construction of the horizontal, so the roads and other horizontal infrastructure. They've requested this extension for, of about a few months. This is based on the general contractor's request for their schedule. So right now under the MDA, they are required to complete these by May 13th, 2021. And we believe that the request that you will see next week will be for a couple month extension. I believe we're talking about the end of July, 2021. Another document that has been provided to you this evening is the maintenance agreement. Again, we're not asking for approval of it this evening, but wanted to preview its purpose so that you can take it up kind of hopefully more quickly on the 10th. The purpose of the maintenance agreement is, and we're happy to pull up a depiction of the project if it's helpful, but there is a central park area and then also a stormwater detention facility, a smaller one up in the northwest that's called Tract J. It actually lives kind of within Tract A. As you may recall, the Urban Renewal Authority is retaining Tracts A and B, which we call the education parcel and the commercial parcel for short. And those are the project, or the two tracks that are on the westernly-most side of the project along the road. And so those are retained by the authority. The rest goes to Del West, and then the Del West is forming a homeowners association to maintain a lot of the common area, and that would include the Central Park area and the stormwater detention facility. So the purpose of the maintenance agreement is basically to state that Del West HOA is going to be maintaining that, and then also have, for right now, the authority as the owner contribute towards that maintenance cost based on the percentages here on the slide, 7% and 14%, and those were negotiated. And then if and when those the tracks A and B are sold, whoever acquires those properties would take on that responsibility. And that cost begins to be assessed once those are actually improved. So, you know, it's not paid for by the authority until the park is actually constructed and the city has indicated initial acceptance, for example. And the last of the items to cover this evening is the affordable housing loan. So as you will recall, one of the obligations of the city under the purchase agreement with Del West was to provide $3.75 million in a loan for the affordable housing. And the city previously loaned those dollars to the authority, and there's a loan agreement between the entities for that. And the authority is planning to and has the dollars to put those into the escrow at closing on behalf of the authority and the city to meet that commitment. What the PSA doesn't do, quite frankly, is flesh out all the details that need to be fleshed out for the loan itself. So we are in kind of active discussions with Del West and its equity partners around what those terms are. So what is the interest? We have agreed upon that. We've agreed that it compounds annually. We have agreed upon a 5% default rate. We have agreed and negotiated a 30-year term. We are looking at some of the questions around annual interest payments, and there's a continued discussion as to cash flow limitations and amortization because of Del West's agreement with its partners. It is required to kind of keep a certain amount of cash flow, and so it is asking to only pay the interest in that first 10-year period if it is cash flowing on the project. Just for clarity, that $3.75 million loan will be subordinate to other lenders. This is particularly for the affordable housing product. It's complex. It's really tough to finance these projects, and there are equity parties and multiple lenders, both with CHAFA and with Division of Housing. So we are subordinate to those, and that has been agreed upon. And then we are looking for some kind of involvement right now on refinancing of the senior loans so that the authority is at the table. And then we're also continuing to discuss some guarantees. So again, no formal action is necessary for the board tonight. We wanted to take this opportunity to preview the items that you'll be seeing in more detail next week and answer any questions you may have, get any guidance that you might have if there's a particular item you want to dig into. And then if there is the need to talk about kind of any particular negotiation terms, please do feel free to request an executive session to obtain legal advice and to discuss negotiations. And I believe Robert Cheesley's on, and we're happy to guide you through moving into an executive session if that is the request of the board. But otherwise, just happy to give you an update. As far as additional documents, I know that that Jenna has provided the corporate chart that I mentioned. And we've also provided a chart that outlines the various changes that we expect to the MDA and the PSA, so that you can preview those. And then also the maintenance agreement is final and that draft has been provided. So with that, I will stop. And I do know that Roger is on, Jenna is on, Robert is on, and Rick Wells, our owner's representative, is also on in order to answer any questions that the board may have. So thank you for your time.
Are there any questions or discussion from the board members? Seeing none, we'll move on. Thank you, ma'am, for your presentation. Next is authorization for site planning work for retained parcel. Will Rick Wells, owner's representative, lead the discussion?
Sure, I'd be happy to. What we need to do is to take a look at that commercial tract that Caitlin was referencing. It's the southwest, about 8 acres of the site. And the reason we want to take a look at it is because we have continuing interest from a hotel developer about locating a hotel product on that site. It's a hotel is a great commercial addition to the project based upon not just the number of people that it brings in, but also the sales tax and property tax revenues associated with it that then helps with the TIF reimbursement. So it's a real positive for the site. We're working with Del West, but quite frankly, they're so involved with this complex closing that I've kind of taken the lead and been pushing to keep this hotel developer interested and moving forward on the site. I've had communication with them in just the last 24 hours. They remain interested. The thing we have to do is, because the URA owns the site, is to have the URA sign a contract to do some initial conceptual site planning. The other feature that we know has to occur on that site is that there needs to be a water quality pond located in the northwest corner of the site. The hotel, we're going to know, is going to want visibility to Highway 2. We also want to make sure that the remainder of that commercial quadrant gets developed in a thoughtful way, and have city input from the staff and from the URA to understand what we're going to do with that commercial tract and to see how the hotel will fit. In order to do that, we need Kimley Horn, who's the engineer working on the site, both previous to and now for Del West, doing the site planning, to do some initial work. They've put a quote out for $4,500 of initial conceptual design and engineering work to be able to locate and size the water quality pond and test out some various commercial hotel locations so that we can enter into a letter of intent with the developer that then the city, the URA, would have a chance to take a look at and see whether or not that's a deal we want to go forward with. So it's initial planning. It'll be helpful no matter who ends up developing the site, no matter how it gets developed as a commercial property, but it's really timely to move forward with this because we do have a buyer that's potentially interested.
Any questions or discussion from the board regarding this item? Seeing no questions, I do have a question. You mentioned a hotel. Can we get an indication as far as what brand that would be and whether
Yeah,
or
they're
not?
looking at a Woodbridge Suites.
Okay,
and
thank you very much.
It's a good developer. They've got a number of them. They've got a really nice product. I can send you a picture of it. The one that they're looking at for the design on this site is similar to a product they just finished up in Broomfield, and it would be a good price point, appropriate design.
Okay, thank you. If you could send that out to the board so they have that available.
I will certainly do that.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions, discussion on this item? I'm looking for a motion and a second to authorize the executive director to negotiate and execute a contract with a vendor to perform preliminary site planning for Commerce City Urban Renewal Authority retained parcels. Board Member Madera,
So moved.
Board Member Alan Thomas.
I'll second it.
And I have a motion and a second to authorize the executive director to negotiate and execute a contract with a vendor to perform preliminary site planning for Commerce City Urban Renewal Authority retained parcels. Is there any discussion? Seeing no request for discussion, we'll take a roll call vote.
Commissioner Madera,
Yes.
Commissioner Alan Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Noble,
Yes.
Commissioner Guardiola,
Yes.
Commissioner Hurst,
Yes.
Commissioner Grimes,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Fairfield, Commissioner Tedesco,
Yes.
Commissioner Lewis,
Yes.
Vice Chair Frank,
Yes. Chair
Huseman.
Yes.
Passes 11 in the affirmative, 1 excused.
Thank you. That concludes our agenda for this evening. If you did not hear, there is a request to have another meeting next Monday evening, the 10th of August at 6 p.m. So look for that invitation in your inbox. Any other items of discussion from anybody? Seeing none, we will adjourn this meeting and move into the city council meeting, which will be using the same Zoom meeting. So all council members, please stay for that meeting. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
All right, we'll move into the city council meeting. This is a virtual meeting using the Zoom platform. Members of the public can view this meeting live or on channel 8 or c3gov.com/video. If you're a council member, please be